Greetings friends, it's me, Wayman29, and I come on to do another installment of the Book of Samuel. And in this section, it's about the Ark narratives, and this section will run from 4:1b to chapter 7, verse 1. So 1 Samuel, chapter 4, verse 1b to 1 Samuel chapter 7, verse 1. Here a lot of stuff is going on, and this may be another long video, but we got a lot to cover here, and there's a lot of interesting stuff coming out in scholarship. VAR just had an interesting article, and I had to dig out another article on some hypothesis about what was going on in the story, and we're going to look at a Hebrew way of counting, because many say that these numbers are exaggerated in the biblical literature, and we're going to look into some theories about the counting methods as far as military is concerned, and we're also going to look at some ancient Near Eastern literature pertaining to rituals against pestilence, which ends up happening in the story where the Philistines, or sea peoples, send the ark back. There's also some speculation about who the sea peoples were, and if at this time period where the narrative comes from or originates from, and woven in here by the author, Samuel is not mentioned in these next couple chapters. So this is the Ark narratives. This is plainly to show that the importance of the arks, probably legends that were floating around about the ark, and how the divine or the creator takes care of himself, and hey, when you can't get a job done right, you do it yourself. And we're going to look at some interesting things. So to get on with this, we're going to start looking at the text from the Jewish Study Bible, by the Jewish Publication Society, and we'll see where it goes from there. So starting on 4b, you can mark this up from 4:1b to 7, chapter 7, verse 1 as the Ark narratives, because here it's totally the Ark and the divine making things happen. And it's really interesting. So here we have where the Philistines, or the sea peoples, are in battle, and they're encamped at Ebenezer, while the Philistines Israel was at Ebenezer. The Philistines were camped at Aphek. And the Philistines raised themselves against Israel, and the battle was fought, and the Israelis take a hit. Here it says about 4,000. So let's look at that and see how some of these numbers add up or don't add up. So here I'm going to the Anchor Bible Commentary, which is a great commentary in 1 Samuel, P. Kyle McCarter Jr. And he has a note for this, and it says figures out of the question is a wide agreement that the designation 1,000 Elep denotes some kind of military unit of unspecified size. This assumption has been used to special advantage by G.E. Mendenhall in interpreting the census list of numbers 1 and 26. There, in numbers 1, the units, thousands, vary in size from 5 men per unit to over 14 men per unit. Applying these figures to the present passage, we can estimate that the Israeli loss of the battle at Ebenezer at between 150 and 420 infantrymen, in addition to the casualties suffered in the first engagement. So this is he's talking about when Israelis take the hit, they go back and get the ark, and then they come back and take another hit. So altogether, here in this battle, after both episodes, 420. So that's a hypothesis about that, which is really interesting. I'm sure there's some great literature out there on the numbers and how that happened. So here the ark is captured. Well, first they lose the first battle, and they say, well, maybe we lost the first battle because the divine was not with us, and so said they're asking questions. When the Israelite troops returned to the camp, the elders of Israel asked, "Why did the Lord put us to rout today before the Philistines? Let us fetch the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord from Shiloh. Thus he will present among us and will deliver us from the hands of our enemies." So the troops sent men to Shiloh, where the two sons of Eli were, and they bring the ark out, and Israel cheers when the ark enters the camp, and the Philistines say, "Oh no, this is a great exchange that happens here." You could read the literature for that from verse 5 onward. The Philistines go on, "Brace yourselves and be men, O Philistines, or you will become slaves to the Hebrews as they were slaves to you. Be men and fight." So here the Philistines were a little bit worried that they would get plagued. Who would save us from the power of this mighty God? He is the same God who struck the Egyptians with every kind of plague in the wilderness. So it's kind of interesting here that the Philistines didn't know that it was in Egypt that the plagues happened, but in the wilderness. This also may harken back to some older stuff that may have been left in here inadvertently about when the plagues happened, which is pretty interesting. So after the second rout, a guy runs to tell the message, and he reaches Shiloh. His clothes are rent as a sign of mourning. He has dust on his head, and Eli was found sitting on a seat waiting beside the road, his heart trembling for the ark of God. So probably from earlier experiences here, when you have the two oracles against Eli's sons, he's not really particularly overly worried about his sons, but more about the ark of God. And in this whole thing of Eli falling off the seat, he may have been on top of a wall or a tower of some sort. When he hears the news, he can't hear or he can't see. First the Benjamite tells the townspeople, and then they tell Eli. He falls over, breaks his neck, and dies. And his daughter-in-law, Phinehas, was with child, and so we get a child with the birth, meaning the glory has departed from Israel. Also, you can look at Jezebel, or the English Jezebel, and see how that relates to Ichobod, and the meaning the glory has departed from Israel. That's a really interesting thing to study. When the Philistines captured the Ark of God, they brought it to Ebenezer to Ashdod. The Philistines took the Ark of God and brought it to the temple of Dagon. Dagon's got a grain. Also, could be. There's some speculation out there also being a sea god. There's some with that, some connection with that. But mostly grain, and also in the pantheon, he at times, depending on which culture you're studying, took the place of even El, the head deity of the Canaanite pantheon. And so even up until the Maccabean period, temple to Dagon still stood. But here the narrative is picking on Dagon, and the author really lets the Philistines have it. And the author is not concerned with Shiloh being destroyed and the enemy coming into Israeli territory, deep into Israeli territory. He's more concerned with how the ark will return and the implications of the captured ark will have on the enemy, and making fun of the enemy. So these stories were probably passed around. So here early the next day, the Ashdodites found Dagon laying face down on the ground in front of the ark of the Lord. Then they pick him up, put him back in his place. But early the next morning, Dagon was laying prone on the ground in front of the ark of the Lord, and his head and his hands were cut off, lying on the threshold. Only Dagon's trunk was left intact. So here, the narrator wants to show that, here he falls over and as if he's worshiping the God of the Israelites. And when the men of Ashdod saw how matters stood, the ark of God of Israel must not remain among us, for his hand has dealt harshly with us and on our God. So they sent messengers and assembled all the lords of the Philistines and said, what shall we do with the ark? And they said, let the ark be removed to Gath. So they move it. And after they moved the ark, the divine, the Creator, plagues him again, causing great panic, and he strikes the city with hemorrhoids. This is pretty interesting because here some scholars believe that hemorrhoids may actually be a euphemism for the phallic symbol, which is found in archaeology. And here in VARS Magazine, we read May-June 2008, did Captured Ark Afflict Philistines with erectile dysfunction? So here they list the word for opalim, O-P-A-L-I-M, Hebrew, and what that means. And also here they have some archaeological, which I'll hold up, phallic findings in archaeology of the phallic symbols and what this might mean. And it may have been, it's just a hypothesis, may have been too inappropriate to put in sacred literature and talk about it in such ways. However, also there's theories out there about the plague, because here they're also plagued with mice. They're also plagued with mice. Mice eat up all the grain, so they're having large trouble in since, as we now know from the Black Plague, fleas from the mice spread the plague, and so that's another possibility. But so they sent the ark to Ekron, and the ark came to Ekron, and they cried out, have you brought the God of Israel in here to slay us? They too sent messengers and assembled the elders, and they wanted it out of the city, for the panic of death pervaded the whole city. So heavily at the hand of God had fallen there. The men who did not die were stricken with hemorrhoids. So this is men, This is why the article in VAR says possibly it might be erectile dysfunction. And the outcry of the city went up to heaven. So the ark remains in the territory of the Philistines 7 months. So they say, what do we do? They get their diviners and their elders together, and they say, well, we got to do something about the problem. So they said, what should we do with the ark? The Lord, tell us. We shall send it off to its own place. And they answered, if you are going to send the ark of God away, do not send it away without anything. Give them a payment, and you will be healed. And so they put in the 5 golden hemorrhoids, or phallic symbols, or tumors, or whatever golden objects they would be. 5 golden mice corresponding to the number of lords of the Philistines. For the same plague struck all of you and your lords. You shall make figures of the hemorrhoids, as we already said. And so they took, therefore, get a new cart ready, make 2 milk cows that have not borne a yoke, harness the cows to the cart, take back indoors the calves that follow them, take the ark of the Lord and place it on the cart, and put it next to the chest of golden objects you are paying him as indemnity. Send it off and let it go its way. Then watch. If it goes up the road to Beth Shemesh, to his own territory, it was he who has inflicted this great harm on us. But if not, we shall know that it was not his hand that struck us. It just happened to come to us by chance. So they take the 2 cows who had never been yoked, remove their calves, and the cows head towards Israel. And the Israelites are happy to see the ark. They take the cart, slaughter the 2 cows, and make a sacrifice. So here in ancient Near East, there were plagues against pestilence. So we're going to read one of those, and I happen to have it here. This is from a Hittite ritual. It's found in ancient Near Eastern texts relating to the Old Testament, page 374. It's a ritual against pestilence. It says, if people are dying in the country, and if some enemy, God has caused that, I act as follows. They drive up 1 ram they twine together blue wool, red wool, yellow wool, black wool, and white wool, make it into a crown, and crown the ram with it. They drive the ram onto the road leading to the enemy, and while doing so they speak as follows: Whatever god of the enemy land has caused this plague, see, we have now driven up this crowned ram to pacify thee, O God. Just as the herd is strong but keeps peace with the ram, do thou, the God who has caused this plague, keep peace with the Hittite land. In favor turn again toward the Hittite land. And they drive that one crowned ram towards the enemy. So here we can kind of see the comparison. So in the next installment of Samuel, we will see Samuel as judge. So take care, friends. Sorry this was kind of long, had a lot to cover, but be well, and remember, if everybody's thinking alike, then somebody isn't thinking.